part, most people are player characters. So what's up, Francis? So Worlds of Adventure. So it can take place in any world that you want. There is no one D&D world. One thing that new players often don't realize is that you can play a modern sci-fi or D&D game in any setting whatsoever. Whilst traditionally D&D is played in a realm such as like the Forgotten Realms. Thanks so much to JC Next Jenna for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. Thanks for following, man. And as ever, guys, feel free to stop me if I'm going too quickly. Stop me at any point. A lot of people love 4E. I know a lot of people love 4E. I know a lot of guys love 4E. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. So, it can take place in any setting. There are some published settings which Wizards of the Coast, who are the publishers of Dungeons and Dragons, release, such as Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, Greyhawk, Dark Sun, Mystara, and Eberron. You can play your games in those worlds, or you don't have to. You can play it in your own world whatsoever. Another new thing that a lot of new players don't often know is, whilst there are adventure modules which Wizards of the Coast release, such as Curse of Strahd, I'll show you that here. So the Curse of Strahd here is an adventure book. We're actually giving one away. And you can, this book gives you all you need to play this adventure, but you can just make up your own adventure on your own. Thanks so much to Silverdoe Isabel for following. Welcome to the adventure. You are a gentle lady and a scholar. Thank you for following. So that's another thing that not all new players know. So thanks to Thankful Host. What's up, bro? So let's look at these basic rules here. And have a look. Part 1 is about creating your character, providing the rules and guidance you need to make a character to play in the game. Thanks so much to Ultimate Zrot for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. Thanks for following, buddy. There's what we could do for your birthday stream. A sci-fi adventure. Yeah. You're going too fast, Sensei. So part 1 is about creating a character. Last week, we did a character creation tutorial about making your character sheet. So on our YouTube channel is where you can find how to create your character. We're not going to go into too much detail into that today because we covered that last week, but I want to show you guys how you actually play D&D once you have that character made. So part 2 details the rules on how to play the game beyond the basics described in its introduction. That part covers the kinds of die rolls you make to determine success or failure at the tasks your character attempts, and describes the 3 broad categories of activity in the game: exploration, interaction, and combat. And in part 3 is magic, and we'll get into magic later on. So how to play is very important. That's what we're all about today. I have seen the Magic the Gathering stuff. Yeah, I have seen that. I will get onto my opinion on that in a little bit. Yeah, just 2 followers off of 3,500, which is sweet. Since last month, this time we hit 3,000 followers. So about 500 a month for this one, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, how to play. The DM describes the environment. The DM tells the players where their adventures are and what's around them, presenting the basic scopes of options that present themselves. How many doors lead out of a room, what's on the table, who's in the tavern, and so on. So what that means is the Dungeon Master, who is in control of the environment, who is creating the story, tells his players, for instance, you are in a room, you're in a tavern, there are so many people around, there are people sitting at the bar, and he goes ahead and describes the scene. So the DM is basically the scene setter. He tells you what the scene is looking like, who's in it, the characters around it, what it looks like, what it smells like. The players describe what they do, or that they want to do. So sometimes, as it says here, one player speaks to the whole party saying, we'll take the east door, or other times different adventurers do different things. One adventurer, as it says here, might search a treasure chest while a second examines an esoteric symbol engraved on a wall. So the DM has to keep track of what all the different players are doing. It's not an easy role. It's one which requires a lot of multitasking, and it requires a lot of focus. So one player might be off doing drinking at the bar whilst the other is playing dice. It's all up to the player to decide, and then the DM has to decide how those actions go. So whilst the player may want to do something, he may not necessarily be able to do it. For instance, if my character is trying to break down a door, it's up to the Dungeon Master whether or not I can do that, because that door might be wrought of iron, it might be the most sealed door in all the land, it might be magically sealed, so I don't know if I can just bust open the door. And it's not only in the DM's hands, it's up to the roll of the dice. And so, whilst Dungeons and Dragons is a very narrative and open storytelling game, it also is dictated by the dice. And the dice have a lot to do with the game aspect of it. That's where it comes into more of a tabletop game rather than just a storytelling game. If I say please go have an open legend workshop soon, that's not a bad idea actually. Yeah, let's say I talked to Brian about it. So let me go down here. So it's about the dice. So for instance, if I'm trying to break down a door, then the DM might tell me, unless it's an easy door which I can open, but if I'm just trying to bash in a door, that most likely has some kind of roll, and we call those checks. We call those skill checks. Or you might hear them referred to as ability checks as well. So skill checks are one of the most common dice that you'll ever roll whilst you're playing D&D. To do mundane tasks, you don't need to roll anything. So if I'm just trying to open a normal door, which is just unlocked, I don't need to roll for that because my character is, an adventurer. He can open an own door. You don't need to roll for that. It slows down the game. But if I'm trying to do like heroic actions and try and do something special or convince someone to do something, then most likely a roll is required. So let's talk about these polyhedral dice because you'll hear D20, D8, D12, D10, D6 thrown around, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything if you've never played before or if you're just new to the game. Different dice are referred to by the letter followed by the number of sides. So a D4 is a 4-sided dice, a D6 is a 6-sided dice. I've got a bunch of dice there I can show in a minute. A D8 is an 8-sided dice, for instance, but a D20 is the most common dice in Dungeons & Dragons. It's known as a D20 system because most of the time, nearly always, you're rolling a D20 when you're playing D&D. So all you need is one of these bad boys. I actually have mine on a necklace here, made by Rachel. Nick Saracen chat made me this lovely D20 necklace here. So this is kind of what a D20 looks like. It's got 20 sides to it, 1 to 20, and in D&D, the higher the better. So in some games, you're trying to roll under. You're trying to roll low. But in this game, the higher the better. The higher you roll, the better you'll roll. The more damage you do, the more likely you are to succeed. So it's pretty easy to get your head around. So basically, in this game, you roll a d20, and you look at it. If it's high, it's likely good. If it's low, it's likely bad. So there are percentile dice in existence, which work differently, which are D100s. We're not going to go into them too much right now because all you really need is the D20. So as we say here, we've got a whole section on the sacred D20. These are obviously very famous. What's up, Special Projects? Good to see you, my friend. How are you doing? So let's continue onwards here. The D20 is the most common dice. I've been watching you forever. By the way, it plays twice, helps me understand your games. But that's good. I'm glad I can be of some assistance to you guys. So the D20. Does an adventurer's sword swing hurt a dragon or just bounce off his iron scales? Will the ogre believe an outrageous bluff? Can a character swim across a raging river? All these come down to the roll of a 20-sided dice or a D20 to determine success or failure. So every character and monster in the game has capabilities defined by 6 ability scores. The abilities are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And they typically range from 3 to 18, as it says here. So, as we saw last week in our last Dungeon Masters workshop about character creation, we had the different ability scores here, and ability scores are up on the left-hand side of the screen for me. So, the higher the ability score, the better, and the higher your modifier is. So, modifiers are derived from your ability score, and I won't go too much into the exact character creation and how to determine your ability scores. Like I say, last week has all that. What's up, Lee? How are you? How's it going, Gareth? I'll go too deeply into that, but the higher the better as ever. So if I have an ability score in strength of 18, then I'm a very strong guy, and so I have a +4 to my modifier. And that's all you really need to know. You don't need to know why that is so much. You just need to know that is the case. And if I have a low score, I have a low dexterity, then I'm very clumsy most likely, and I'm not very good on my feet. And so my if I had a 10, I'd be at 0. I have no modifier whatsoever. So the modifiers come into play when you're rolling the d20. So when I roll a d20 to see if I can swing at the ogre, I add the relevant modifier. So for swinging a sword, it's a strength-based attack, right? Because I'm swinging at my sword, I'm using my strength to do it. I'm using my physical capabilities to attack. I roll a d20 and I add the relevant modifier. So the modifier for my strength score, if it was an 18, would be +4. So I'd roll a d20 and I'd add a +4 to it. And this goes on. Is there a set limit for ability scores? Can you go past 20? I believe the maximum you can reach is 30 with a +10 in your modifier. I mean, if you wanted to go further than that, in theory you could do with, like Shaggy saying, magical items. Or of course, if you just wanted to extend the rules to like a super high god tier of combat, then you could do. But for the most part, that's all we need for this one. So add circumstantial bonuses and penalties. So I've already rolled my d20 +4. A class feature, a spell, or particular circumstance, or some other effect might give a bonus or penalty to the check. So, for instance, if my enemy is on the floor, then it's going to be easier for me to hit him, right? Because he's like prone, laying down, and he's just an easy target. Whereas if he's standing up and he's got his sword ready to defend himself, then it's much harder for me to get that swing in to hit him. So, circumstantial bonuses and penalties can apply. So you compare the total to a target number, and this is one of the very kind of core principles about D&D is you roll your d20, you add your modifiers, and then you try and compare it to this other figure, which is known as a difficulty class. Difficulty class is usually referred to as a DC. So when you hear us saying, oh, it's DC 12, it's DC 14, then that is what we mean. We're talking about difficulty class. How difficult is it for me to hit this ogre? Is he a really well trained ogre? Is he really well armored? Or is he just lying down on the floor, very easy to hit, completely naked, and easy to slay? So difficulty class is very important. So the target number for an attack roll is called an armor class. So you'll hear this referred to all the time as AC. What's your AC, I'll say? The AC of the ogre is 7, or the AC of this is 10. And that means that you need the number that you rolled, the d20 plus your relevant modifiers, to be equal to or greater than that difficulty class. And how does the difficulty class get set? Well, it's set by the Dungeon Master. And the Dungeon Master is aware of the rules, and he knows what is an appropriate difficulty class for your level. So for instance, if you're a level 1 character, you're not going to be defeating a god in hand-to-hand combat, so the difficulty class for that is going to be really high. Whereas if you're just trying to fight a goblin who's also at the same level, then the difficulty class is going to be appropriately low for you to hit him, and so is his armor class. So a goblin is not as well trained as an ogre in combat, and he's not as strong, so his armor class is going to be lower. Whereas the ogre's armor class is going to be higher. So, attacking different enemies depending on their level and difficulty is all about their armor class. So, does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, I know, yeah, 7 was a bit low for an ogre, maybe. DC is for saves against spells or effects, AC is for hitting, isn't it? So, okay, you got it. Yeah, so armor class is just the number that you need to beat to hit the enemy. And basically, armor class is one type of difficulty class. So armor class is just the most common difficulty class. But if I'm rolling, let's take another example, not a combat one. I'm trying to jump over a fence. Then I'm going to roll my d20, and I'm going to add my appropriate modifier, which is going to be dexterity based because I'm trying to be dexterous and jump over. So I'm going to add, say I've got a 12 in dexterity, so I'm going to add a +1. So I roll a d20 plus that 1. And I see what happens. And a difficulty class, maybe it's a really easy fence to jump over. Let's say that's a 10. And so if I roll 10 or more, then I have succeeded. One common, misnomer or thing which we often get wrong when we're just starting the game is if it's dead on, if the DC is 12 and I roll a 12, then that is a success. So equal to or greater than is always the success. Anything lower is a failure. So yeah, how does that play out in a game? So I'm trying to jump over this fence and I fail. I rolled a 9 and the DC was 12, let's say. So I can't get over the fence. The dungeon master, who's in control of the story, he's the narrator, he's going to describe to me exactly how I fail. So, you know, maybe he tells me, oh, you're running along but you trip over a rock and you fall splat into the fence and you hurt your nose. Something like that, basically. As Skull Silent Chat is saying, AC doesn't always equal armor class. So equal armor, in fact, it equals armor class. So that's another thing. It doesn't necessarily mean how well armored you are. It just means how difficult you are to hit. So that could mean, you know, let's take an example from a bit like a popular TV series. Let's say Syrio Forel, the water dancer from Game of Thrones. He is a great swordsman using his rapier. He doesn't wear really much armor, he's just wearing his basic leathers, but he'd have a really high armor class because he's really hard to hit. Similarly, like a ninja character. A ninja character would probably have a high AC because he's dodging around, which means his AC is high, but doesn't necessarily mean he's well armored. So that is a basic principle of D&D, is the DC and talking about armor class and how to succeed and how to fail. Let me get rid of that for you guys. That's in its wrong place. There we go. Then we need to bring Skype up there for you. Let's see. Moving on to advantage and disadvantage. So sometimes an ability check, attack roll, or saving throw is modified by special situations called advantage and disadvantage. So this is a core principle of D&D 5e as well. This is something that you're gonna have to come to understand, and it's actually really, really simple to do so. They made it nice and easy for us to get. So in previous editions, you'd have things called action points. In this game, we have advantage and disadvantage. So advantage means that you're doing really well on something. It's really easy to do it. So for example, I'm trying to hit the ogre that's on the floor. The DM tells me, well, he's prone, so you have advantage to do so. Similarly, if I'm trying to hit a guy and I'm on the floor, then I might have disadvantage to do so, and that is all at the DM's discretion to do so. There are also some rules in the game which just and some spells which grant advantage and disadvantage. So you know, whilst it is at the DM's discretion, some things will definitely give you advantage. For instance, there are some spells in the game that will say, on my next attack, I get advantage against this enemy. But what is advantage and what is disadvantage? So basically, all that advantage is that I'd roll, rather than just rolling my 1d20, if I have advantage, I roll 2 d20s, I add my relevant modifiers, add any circumstantial benefits, and then I take the highest one if I have advantage. So advantage is roll twice, take the highest. So I roll 2 d20s. My first d20 after modifiers is a 14. My second is a nat 20. I take the nat 20 because it's the highest. So advantage means take the highest. Similarly, disadvantage means you take the lowest. So I rolled, a 7 on my first roll and a 12 on the second. I'm going to have to take the 7 because I'm at disadvantage. I'm lying down on the floor and it's harder to attack. And so, you've got to... that's just a basic thing to do. So when your DM says roll at advantage, what he means is saying, this is easy for you to do it. Roll me twice, and the highest number is the one that you get to take. And so it's a really pretty easy thing to wrap your head around. Is advantage and disadvantage. So once again, advantage is roll twice, take the highest. A disadvantage is roll twice, take the lowest. So that is disadvantage and advantage. Be sure, guys, if I'm going too quickly, just stop me, shout at me, and I will go back and roll over something for you guys. So specific beats general is a general rule, I guess, or very specific rule, as the case may be. So in general, if a specific rule contradicts a general rule, the specific rule wins. So For instance, there are a lot of rules in this game once you get into it, and whilst there are general rules which are there for the most part, there are some specific ones, and so in general, if you come across a rule and it specifically reads something, then as you're reading through here, take the specific rule rather than the general rule, because they are written after the general rules. Also, as a general rule, round down in D&D, so if you have to roll a half, or you, for whatever reason, you have to do any kind of division in the game, which comes up every now and again, then you round down rather than rounding up, which is different to other games. I believe in 4 where you rounded up, whereas in this edition you round down. Thanks so much to Arutus Castle for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You are a gentle castle and a scholar. We are just one follower away. That's right, one follower away from 3,500 followers, which is pretty sweet. So if you haven't followed, then do follow us, because that'd be awesome. So, let me go on here. So rounding down, pretty easy. Shouldn't come up too much, but there you go. Adventures. Let's talk about what an adventure is. So, one thing which I've heard in chat come up a few times is the concept of adventures and campaigns. Thank you so much to Governor for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. Thanks for following, man. That is awesome, guys. We did it. Let's get some hype in the building. Thanks so much to Fear Cope for following as well. Welcome, my friend. You are also a gentleman and a scholar. Wow, that's awesome, guys. That is absolutely amazing. I know Francis was saying earlier you followed when we were about 1,000 and we've just come a long way. So it's been awesome. Thanks so much, guys. That is awesome. Appreciate that. So round down is usually when PCs have resistances on monsters, other circumstances too. Yeah, for instance, your DM might just say, let's just roll a random d6 for something, and then you might end up, rounding it down if there's 2 and you have to halve it. That's awesome, guys. So, for those of you who don't know, this time, almost exactly this time last month, I think it's like a day or two in between, we hit 3,000 followers. So, like, the progression is real, boys. The hype is real. We're coming along leaps and bounds, and it's awesome to see all of you new guys hanging out. Every day there's new guys hanging around, which is awesome. New folks on our Discord as well. So, if you're new and you don't know too much about the channel, we are here 5 nights a week. We stream more D&D than absolutely anyone out there on the internet. So, at the moment, we are on a crazy schedule. 5 nights a week, 9 shows a week. That's over 130-ish hours every single month. So, I wish I had you teach me when I was learning. It would have been so much easier. Well, that's it, isn't it? Sometimes if you learn the wrong way and you have to go back and learn it again, it's difficult. So, we'll go through this again and just pretend you don't know anything about D&D. I guess, and that could help, and we'll see. Here we go. So let me bring this down here. So, adventure. So, what is an adventure? You say, I want to go on an adventure. What does that even mean? What is a quest? What is a campaign? What is this one-shot thing I've heard about? Well, there are different terms. There's a whole lot of jargon thrown around in the world of D&D. So, a campaign is the most common type of game which you'll be playing in, I'd say. There are a lot of campaigns, and they can all take part in different roles. So a campaign means that you start an adventure, you have a beginning, you have a middle, you have an end, and a campaign is a long-running game of Dungeons & Dragons. They often involve long, overarching quests, plots, and different characters are met along the way, and different adventures are had along over the entire course of the campaign. A campaign could last anywhere from 10 to unlimited sessions. I have known campaigns that continue on for absolutely ever, and there's no limit to how long a campaign can go on for. But one-shots are known as such because, like a novel, like a novel. So think of a campaign like a fantasy novel that you've read before. Think about like the Drizzt series, for instance. I know none of us like Drizzt really, but think of the Forgotten Realms books because I know loads of people are familiar with them. That is a campaign. Think of the Lord of the Rings. That is one huge campaign that he did there. Whilst it takes part in 3 different books, which could be like different campaigns in themselves. Overall, The Lord of the Rings is one gigantic campaign. A one-shot, as it's known, is one adventure which takes place over the course of one session. So you sit down, you play the game, and at the end of the session, you've come to the conclusion of that campaign. So they are much shorter. They're much more like short stories. So think of some really good short stories that you're familiar with, and you know that is basically what a one-shot is. And I'll put the spelling of that if any of you are interested, because you've probably seen it around in chat. It's just one shot like that. You do it all in one shot, as the name would suggest. So hopefully that is clear. The adventure is the heart of the game, a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. An adventure might be created by the Dungeon Master or purchased off the shelf, tweaked and modified to suit the DM's needs and desires. In either case, an adventure features a fantastic setting, whether it's an underground dungeon, a crumbling castle, a stretch of wilderness, or a bustling city. It features a rich cast of characters. The adventure is created and played by the other players at the table, as well as non-player characters known as NPCs. So you've probably heard the term player characters around, so PCs, that is what PCs are. Non-player characters are known as NPCs. And anyone familiar with video games are probably familiar with that. What's up, Bleak? Good to see you, man. Next, Jenna says, what website is this? I have gone and found the basic rules for free are over here. Arcan says, not speaking... My voice is doing much better. That's good. I'm glad to hear that, man. So join first stage to create one on the RP website. You can create... I'll get to that question... have you sent in an email, Perry? I know there's been a bunch of emails, but I'll stay on this track for a moment. I'll do a Q&A in a little bit. Thanks so much to Docker78 for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You are a gentleman and a scholar, so thanks for following, man. So, let me go back to that. So that is one adventure. That's what NPCs are. Let's carry on. So the 3 pillars of adventure. This is pretty important. And when you think about any book like you've read, any fancy novel, this will all make sense to you. So in different parts of the adventure, you'll be doing different things. So the first of all is exploration. So exploration is all about interacting with the world, exploring, as the term may suggest, and going to different places, finding out what they're like, meeting the NPCs there, and along the terminal adventure, you'll go to different areas most likely. A lot of campaigns take place in like one area, but there are often different places within those areas to explore, whether or not it's exploring down a dungeon, whether or not it's exploring just the fields around the place or a mountain, for instance. That is what exploration is about, and the Dungeon Master is going to describe what you find. So you say, I'm going to go and look around the place. I'm going to search down the tunnels. The Dungeon Master is going to tell you, well, down there you go down into this dark sewer and you hear some rats scrabbling away, and maybe you get into a bit of combat there, but we'll get into combat in a moment. So social interaction, this is huge. This is for me, the most important pillar of Dungeons and Dragons, because we are playing a social game. Social interaction is huge. So social interaction features the adventurers talking to someone or something else. It might mean demanding that a captured scout reveal the secret entrance to the goblin lair, getting information from a rescued prisoner, pleading for mercy from an orc chieftain, or persuading a talkative magic mirror to show a distant location to the adventurers. So there are rules for exploration and social interaction in different chapters, but basically what social interaction means is exactly that. If you think of any good novel, there's always that scene where the adventurer has to persuade someone to do what he wants them to do. He has to persuade the town mayor that the village is in danger and that the orcs are coming. So social interaction is number one for me, is above exploration, really, because you're going to be interacting with the other player characters as well. Because whilst you're in this adventuring group, let's go back to the Lord of the Rings example, whilst they are traveling in the Fellowship, they are all talking to each other, they're interacting, they're having little scenes with one another. So not only are you going to be interacting with the NPCs that your Dungeon Master creates, you're going to be interacting with the other players at your table, more so than anyone else. So the combat. this is the big one. This is what everyone knows Dungeons and Dragons for. It's all about the combat for some people. So that's focused in Chapter 9. So that involves characters and other creatures swinging weapons, casting spells, and maneuvering for position and so on, all in an effort to defeat their opponents, whether that means killing every enemy, taking captives, or forcing her out. So as it says here, oh my god, the meeting ends after time. There we go. Let me bring this back in here. Sorry about that, folks. The focus of the chapter, it is the most structured part of Dungeons and Dragons, is the combat. It's all about, there's a lot of rules go into it. It's the most probably well-known part of Dungeons and Dragons is for its combat and everything that goes into it. So, let me bring this here. There we go. So, let's talk about that. The wonders of magic. So another part of D&D is the magic, because there are spellcasters, there are mages, there are all sorts of different magical elements that go into the game, and that is another important part of the adventure. So part 1, creating a character, step-by-step characters. So we went in depth on this last week on the Dungeon Masters Workshop, so I don't want to go too much into it, but I will point you guys in the direction. If you want to create a character, then for an in-depth analysis of how to do so, go to our YouTube channel and you'll find it in our videos there. And I promise you, it's pretty comprehensive. So basically, I'll just go through the basic steps. So rather than an in-depth kind of breakdown. But let's have a look. So choose a race. Step 1 is you choose a race. So the funny thing about Dungeons and Dragons is not everyone is a human. So once again, let's think about any fantasy novels. There are elves, there are dwarves, there are gnomes, there are all sorts. And in Dungeons & Dragons, the Player's Handbook, there are different races that you can play from. You can find a full list of the different races that you play from in the Player's Handbook, and you know, around here later on that will show you different ones. So basically, you want to when you're creating a character, you got to think about who you are and who you want to be. So you know, you want to play a dwarf. So one of the things I tell new players, if you've never played before, is think of a fantasy character that you're familiar with and that you like. So, you know, maybe you're a big fan of Gimli from Lord of the Rings, or maybe you love Legolas. If you have drawn some inspiration from the two different races, or the two different characters, that could determine what kind of race you are. And of course, have a read through what the different races are and see which, you know, resonates mostly with you, because this is your character that you're going to be playing for however long. You want to make sure that you kind of get it right. So, whilst you can change characters and stuff like that, but you know, your first character is pretty special, so let's think about that. So you want to play a dwarf, and in the example that they give in the book, they show you Bruenor Battlehammer, who is of course the character from Forgotten Realms. So step 1, if you're brooding Bruenor, you gotta Bob is sitting down to create his character. He decides that a gruff mountain dwarf fits the character he wants to play, so he chooses his race. Second point is to choose a class, and the classes are the second part of it, really. So you have a race, you have a class, you have a level. The class is what your character is good at, essentially. What is his trade, essentially? What kind of fighter is he? What kind of hero is he? So let's think about what a class actually means. It's a character's vocation. For instance, Gimli is probably a fighter, whereas Legolas is more like a ranger or a rogue type character. And there's a list of different classes, and I'll go and show you the list of different races and classes here. So this is in our Player's Handbook, and you can see just in part 1 here in the see here the different races and classes. So let's have a look. So races, you can play a dwarf, an elf, a halfling, a human, a dragonborn, a gnome, a half-elf, a half-orc, or a tiefling. And then your classes down here include barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, fighter, monk, paladin, rangers, rogue, sorcerer, warlock, wizard. There's so much to choose from. There's a whole load of variety that you can decide upon. So go ahead and read through those and see what might suit your fancy. Level is another thing. So, you know, what does a level mean in D&D? It's a pretty basic thing. You hear about it all the time. What level is your character? Well, if you ever played like and this is at the risk of sounding like, oh, it's just like an MMO, but this is what a lot of people are familiar with. Any kind of role-playing game, or any kind of MMO that you might have played, you have a different level, and that means how powerful your character is. So the higher the level, the more powerful your character is. The lower, the less powerful they are. Most adventures start at level 1. Because that is just the basic starting point for most campaigns where they take place. So the majority probably start at level 1. Experience points. What is an experience point? So just like in any video game that you've played, or any thing that you've heard about, you're probably familiar with the concept that experience points are what level you up. The more experience points you get, the higher level you gain, and you gain experience points by completing quests, defeating monsters, and anything else that your DM wants to reward experience points for, such as good role playing. And hit points is the next thing. I'm conscious of time. So hit points and hit dice. Now hit dice are new. I think yeah, give me a full 5th edition story, because you know we haven't done a proper one before. And maybe you love Triss, maybe you do. But yeah. So what is a hit point? Well, it's basically a score of how healthy your character is. The more hit points you have, the more healthy you are. When you go down low onto low hit points, that means that you're close to dying or close to unconsciousness. Your character's taking wounds. So in combat, when you roll a d20, you add your relevant modifier, you compare it to the armor class. If it's equal to or greater than, then it's known as a hit. And then you roll for damage, and you roll some damage dice, which are typically anywhere from d4s to d12s. You roll your damage, and then you take away that number from your opponent's hit points. So, if I do 10 damage, I take 10 hit points away from my enemy's hit points. And when they go down to 0, that means that they are gone. At first level, your character has 1 hit die, and the die type is determined by your class. So, hit dice are new to 5th edition, and they're not a difficult concept. They're just new. This is also your hit point maximum. Yeah. So hit die are used to replenish hit points. And so depending on your class, you have a different hit die. They can range from d6s to d10s, actually d12s to barbarian. And so when you're spending hit dice, you're replenishing that amount of hit points. But we'll get into that's a bit more complex. We don't need that too much right now. Another basic thing about D&D 5th edition is the proficiency bonus. So the table that appears in your class description shows your proficiency bonus, which is +2 for a first level character. Your proficiency bonus applies to many of the numbers you'll be recording on your character sheet. Attack rolls with weapons you're proficient with. Attack rolls with spells you've cast. Ability checks using skills you're proficient in. Ability checks using tools you're proficiency with. Saving throws you're proficient with. Saving throw DCs to spells you've cast. So, what is this proficiency bonus? If you are proficient in something, then it's the basic core mechanic for the game to say you are good at doing this. You've been trained in doing it, or you've done it for a very long time, or you're just naturally very good at doing something. So if I'm proficient with using a longsword, that means that I have spent time training with a longsword, or I'm just naturally great at using a longsword. So different races and different classes gain different proficiencies in different skills. So for instance, dwarves are typically masters of the axe, and so they gain proficiency in using axes, and they gain proficiency in stuff like history checks because they're an ancient race and they remember everything, and they write it all down. So this proficiency bonus is a +2 for certain things that you're proficient in. And this going back to last week's episode on creating your character into more depth for proficiency bonus. But that's we're running through it again, so damn. That's all you need to know for that. You can determine your ability scores. Again, I won't go into too much depth in this because we did it all last week. I want to get into how to play the game a little bit more. And the next thing is describing your character. Again, we've covered this last week, but go there to find out more about that. So beyond first level, you can level up. You can see your proficiency bonus goes up depending on your level, and the different experience points needed to gain different levels goes up as well. So these are our races here. So we have the dwarves, and we can go into a little bit more about dwarves and elves and stuff like that, and all your different races and classes here. So we've got our classes. So for instance, the class of the cleric is typically the healer. You could be a dwarf cleric, and you'd have your race and your class like that. And once again, we went into this before, so I'm going to skip on over so we can cover some ground that we haven't already covered. So let's keep on going down past the wizard, a very well known personality and backgrounds, all about creating our character again. Let's get back onto how to play the game. Thanks so much to Finbar for our host. What's going on, man? How you doing? We've got our armor here. We could talk about armor for a little bit. No, we'll carry on because it's all character creation stuff. And I believe Mitch covered this all previously before. So I'm just going through the basic rules here for you guys. So you can see I'm just picking out bits I want. So customization options. Alright, we'll talk about multi-classing. We'll talk about multi-classing for a bit because this is a concept I know everyone knows about. How you doing, Finbar, by the way? So, Skag a few dog. So, multi-classing. Multi-classing is you can take different levels in different classes. Now, this only comes around once you hit at least second level. So, you take different levels in different classes. So, if I'm a fighter, if I'm a level 1 fighter, I've taken 1 level in being a fighter. At level 2, I could decide to become a level 2 fighter, or I could decide to become a level 1 fighter and a level 1 rogue. So for instance, when you hear about multi-classing, that is what that can mean. You can be gaining benefits from different classes at the same time, and that's what that is. I don't want to go into exactly how you multi-class, but that is what the term multi-classing means. You have multiple classes. Dan says, it's hella helpful, thanks us. No worries, Dan, no worries. Glad you're enjoying it.
Kind gesture.
Thanks so much to Skag and his £1.11, just because you will. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Skag. That's super cute, man. Super cute. Give that 111 gold there, Skag. Thanks, buddy. So, let me carry on here. Feats. What is a feat? Is it what I have under my shoes? Yes and no. So, a feat represents a talent or an area of expertise that gives a character special capabilities. It embodies training, experience, and abilities beyond what a class provides. See Chapter 6 of the PHB, which is the Player's Handbook, for more information. At certain levels, your class gives you the ability score improvement features. So, at certain levels, you will be given the opportunity to take an advancement in an ability score, these things over the left, so you can bump up your strength skill from 18 that we had before up to a 19, or you could take a feat, and a feat, as in Chapter 6 of the Player's Handbook, are special things that your character have trained to do, and they're basically like special abilities. In 5th edition, they are much less prevalent than they were in previous editions, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about them, but at the same point, it is important to note that feats are an optional rule, and your DM can veto them if he wishes to, and they are not as prevalent as they were in previous editions. I'm hoping they'll become more prevalent in later expansions, but they're basically special abilities that you can do. I'll show you some examples here in Chapter 6 of my Player's Handbook under feats, but I won't go into too much detail, like I say. So, for instance, you can take a feat in being a charger. When you use your dash action, you can use a bonus action to make one melee weapon attack or to shove a creature. So that basically means you can do something that you wouldn't normally do. A crossbow expert, thanks to extensive practice with crossbow, you gain the following benefits. You ignore the loading quality of crossbows, so you don't have to load them up. Being within 5 feet of a hostile creature doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls. When you use the attack action and attack with a one-handed weapon, you can use a bonus action to attack with a loaded hand crossbow you are holding. So a lot of the specifics of the rules for that make no sense to you at this point if you've never played before, but at the same time, that is gives you a basic flavour. They are special things that you can do. Not prevalent. Yeah, feats are nothing. Feats in 5th edition are an afterthought from Wizards of the Coast. They have nowhere near the kind of power that they had before in 4th edition. So, okay, playing the game. This is what we want to do. Using ability scores. So, let's look back at our abilities, in fact. So, strength measures physical power. Dexterity measures agility. Constitution measures endurance. Intelligence measures reasoning and memory. Wisdom measures perception and insight. Charisma measuring force of personality. So we've gone over ability scores and modifiers. We've gone over advantages and disadvantages. We've gone over the proficiency bonus. So let's have some examples of the ability checks, because this is what you're going to be doing most of the time in your D&D career as a player, is making an ability check. So I was saying before, your Dungeon Master sets the DC, or the difficulty classes we were mentioning before. So how does the Dungeon Master do that? Is he just this all-knowing being? Well, no, of course. He has this wonderful table here, which he can use for reference, and of course he can just make it up on the spot if he wants to. So the more familiar your DM is, the less likely he is to use tables. But these are very useful for the new player. So, task difficulty. If it's very easy, the DC is going to be 5. So on a D20 plus your bonus, likelihood is you're going to roll higher than a 5. It's easy, you got to roll a 10, equal to 10 or higher. Medium, 15 or higher. Very hard, 20 or higher. Very hard, 25 or higher. Nearly impossible, 30 or higher. So depending on what you're doing, the DC for a skill check, such as convincing a barman to give you a free night in his inn, that might be medium difficulty, and so that's a 15. But convincing the barman who's deeply in love with you and wants to do anything to please you, that might just be a very easy task, just a 5, for instance, like that. So that can all depend on the situation, and once again, it's up to the Dungeon Master to decide exactly how difficult a task is, depending on situations. So let's go ahead. We can talk. I'll get after this section into the Q&A about why I'm right. No, about discussing 5th edition in general, if you guys want. So contests. So this is another important bit. Yeah, I agree. So Francis is saying in chat, I have now started mixing that table up because the players anticipate the score modifiers they need to reach. So I do that a lot as well. I in fact don't use the table for the most part. I use it as a rough guide to difficulty classes. And then you can say medium. Okay, it's slightly hard. It's going to be a 16 or a 17. And so on. So contests. Sometimes one character's or monster's efforts are directly opposed to one another, so they're clashing heads. This can occur when both of them are trying to do the same thing, and only one can succeed, such as attempting to snatch up a magic ring that has fallen on the floor. This situation also applies when one of them is trying to prevent the other from accomplishing a goal. For example, when a monster tries, to force open a door that an adventurer is holding closed. In situations like these, the outcome is determined by a special form of ability check called a context. Yeah, not even Mitch talked about feats last week. Yeah, I mean, they really are just like a kind of slap on by wizards in this edition. Not that I mind, but they are just so less important to playing the game. They are just optional, whereas in 4th edition they were like a core mechanic, and in Pathfinder. So, contests. Both participants in a contest make ability checks appropriate to their efforts. They apply all appropriate bonuses and penalties, but instead of comparing the total to a DC, they compare the totals of their 2 checks. So let's say Barry the Ogre is going to wrestle against Jim the Half-Orc. They're going to wrestle against each other, and of course, only one of them can win. And so they're both going to roll me a strength-based check, because it's all to do with the strength of their muscles in their arms. They're going to roll their d20, they're going to add their appropriate modifiers up on here, and whoever rolls the highest wins between the 2 players, or the player and the NPC, or even 2 NPCs could be arm wrestling. So it's all up to the DM's discretion, but the higher the roll, the winner of the outcome. So their contest is pretty simple, I think. Both players roll. Whoever rolls highest succeeds in that. Skills. Oh boy, skills are a thing. So, what Barry the Ogre followed did. Welcome, Barry the Ogre, for following. You say it now, it will happen in a minute. So, Hmm. Each ability covers a broad range of capabilities, including skills that a character or a monster can be proficient in. So, for instance, oh boy, how do we do this one? So, ability scores, the strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, they have different skills related to them. For example, a dexterity check might reflect a character's attempt to pull off an acrobatic stunt, to palm an object, or to stay hidden. Each of these aspects of dexterity has an associated skill: acrobatics, sleight of hand, and stealth, respectively. So there we go back down to this part here. So strength has the skill athletics associated to it. Dexterity has acrobatics, sleight of hand, and stealth associated to it. Intelligence has these 5 skills here. Wisdom has these 5 skills here, and charisma has these 4 skills here. So, whilst I am rolling a charisma-based skill, it doesn't mean that deception and intimidation are the same thing. I could be a very deceptive fella, and I could be a really, tricksy kind of guy, and I can really deceive you into doing something. But that doesn't mean that I'm really intimidating and scary. Whilst I might be great in deception, I could at the same time be less good in intimidation. And that's why we have our skill list. And skills are really important in D&D because that's what we're rolling most of the time is skill checks. That's why we need DCs. So sometimes a DM might ask for an ability check using a specific skill. For example, make a wisdom perception check. At other times, a player might ask the DM if proficiency in a particular skill applies to a check. In either case, a proficiency in a skill means an individual can add his proficiency bonus to ability checks that involve that skill. Without proficiency in the skill, the individual makes a normal ability check. Thanks so much to Aldemir for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. Wow, that's some loud motorbikes outside my house right now. Welcome, Aldemir. Good to see you, my friend. So, as ever, guys, feel free to ask any questions that you have. Stop me if I'm going too quickly. So let's go down. So let me reply to this message real quick. Let's have a look here. So, skill checks, what we're talking about. So, all right. So passive checks. This is something which isn't often used in my experience of 5th edition, but it has been used a lot by some DMs. And as ever, a general note is one DM will be very different to another, and so your experience of the game might be more role focused or less focused depending on who you're playing with. So let's have a look here. Passive checks. A passive check is a special kind of ability check that doesn't involve any die rolls. Such a check can represent the average result for a task done repeatedly, such as searching for secret doors over and over again, or being used when a DM wants to secretly determine whether the character succeeds at something. So here's how a passive check is decided. It's 10 plus, so you take 10. You take the number 10 and you add all modifiers that normally apply to that check. So, a passive perception roll is going to be 10 plus your perception bonus, which I realise I'll get into in a minute is a difficult thing to determine. But we'll go back to our character sheet after we think. James D523 for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. Thanks for following, buddy. So let me carry on here. So a passive perception. A dungeon master might need to know what your passive perception is if they are unaware that a party of orcs are hiding around a corner from them. They are sneaking up on them, and the party aren't aware of that. The dungeon master doesn't want to say, roll me a perception check, because that can mean that the party are aware that something is going on, right? So he might want to use the passive perception. So he takes the number 10, and he adds the perception bonus to that. So the perception bonus is the wisdom modifier. So if I have a 12 in wisdom, it's +1. So I've got 10 plus 1 for my wisdom modifier. And then I add in if I'm proficient in the skill. So I'll add in +2 for that. So it's a 13. And then I'll add in any other modifiers at all that could be to do with my my class. So some classes get proficiency in some skills and not in others. So for instance, his passive perception might lie around something like 13. I can then, as a dungeon master, roll a stealth check for the orcs that are hiding around the corner, and if they roll 13 or higher, if they roll lower than 13, then they have failed that check. If they roll 13 or higher, then they can. You're going to run out of voices plan to read the whole bit. No, I'm reading out the basic rules. So there's like 100 pages in this design. And so that can be used to determine, without your players knowing exactly how passive stuff works. Let me carry on here. But yeah, my voice will die after a little bit. But we're working our way through it. I mean, it is pretty basic. So working together. Sometimes 2 or more characters team up to attempt a task. So that makes sense. Sometimes there are more than one person doing it. Character can only provide help if the task is one that he or she could attempt alone. Alright, let's go up here. So they can help. A group check. Sometimes a group of individuals are trying to accomplish something within the group. The DM might ask for a group ability check. In such a situation, characters who aren't skilled at a particular task help cover those who aren't. To make a group ability check, everyone in the group makes the ability check. If at least half the group succeeds, the whole group succeeds. Otherwise, the group fails. So it doesn't come up often, but it's also worth bearing in mind that group checks could be called for by your DM, and that's how you do it. So, using each ability. We've talked about this, but we'll go into a bit more detail. So athletics, it could be to do with swimming, jumping, and anything to do with your strength, really. We'll get up over here. We'll go through the skills, because we've kind of covered them before. Saving throws. Now, a saving throw, what on earth is that? I have heard the term saving throw thrown around, and a lot of people don't even know what it means. So it's going to help so much. I'm setting up new events for my nephew and his friends, having DMs in the second. Oh, I am here to help, Docker. Like I say, if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, we've got a whole series of stuff like this. We do this kind of stuff every Sunday, so find us on YouTube and you can go ahead and teach yourself. So a saving throw is different. A saving throw, also called a save. So a lot of the time you'll just hear the term, give me a X save, give me an X save, but it's actually just short for saving throw. So, represents an attempt to resist a spell, a trap, a poison, a disease, or a similar threat. You don't normally decide to make a saving throw. You're forced to make one because your character or monster is at risk of harm. So, for instance, I might ask my player to roll me a Constitution saving throw if they have been poisoned, because Constitution is all about how sturdy your guy is, how valiant your character can be against poisons. And so I can say, roll me a saving throw. To do so, you roll a d20, so the same sacred d20 that we've been using all along, and add the appropriate ability modifier. For example, use your dexterity modifier to add to a dexterity saving throw. So if I'm trying to save against poison, thanks so much to Switch Talker for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You, sir, are a gentleman and a scholar. Thanks for following, man. So let's go over this one more time. So I got this d20. If I'm trying to save against poison, my DM tells me you have been poisoned by the blade of the goblin. The goblin is using horrible poison against you. Can you roll me a Constitution saving throw? I roll my d20. I add my Constitution ability modifier. So if my Constitution score is 16, I add a +3. If it's 14, I add a +2, and so on and so forth, as on the table over there. So I've been poisoned. If I roll equal to or better than the DC of that saving throw, then I succeed. Just like any other skill check, the Dungeon Master sets the difficulty class. If I roll equal to or greater than, I succeed. If I roll lower, I fail. The difficulty class for a saving throw is determined by the effect that causes it. So, if it's poison, it might be Constitution. If I'm being charmed, it might be a charisma-based saving throw, and so on and so forth. So I think that makes sense. Stop me if it doesn't. Saving throws are less common than ability checks, but you'll be told by your Dungeon Master when to roll them. You can't decide to make a saving throw. So, let's carry on further down here. So, adventuring. The core concept of Dungeons and Dragons. Let me just go down here. Let's have a read. So, delving into the ancient tomb of horrors, slipping through the back alleys of Waterdeep, hacking a fresh trail for the thick jungles of the Isle of Dread. These are things that the Dungeons and Dragons adventures are made of. So, it follows a natural rhythm
As outlined before, the DM describes the environment, the players describe what they do, the DM narrates the results of their action. Typically the DM uses a map as an outline of the adventure, tracking the character's progress as they explore dungeon corridors or wilderness regions. So the DM's notes, including a key to the map, describe what the adventurers find as they enter each new area. Sometimes the passage of time and the adventurer's actions determine what happens, so the DM might use a timeline or flowchart to track the progress rather than a map. The concept of time. How do I know how long time has passed? Well, once again, this is all determined by the dungeon master. So you can say, I want to go and make a camp. How long does that take? Well, maybe it just takes 10 minutes, but your dungeon master is going to describe to you how long things take when you're traveling. How long does it take? Does that take days? Because long journeys can take days. It could even take weeks, even take months. But combat, which is much more fast-paced, while it might take a while to play out in the actual game, in the narrative of the story, each combat round, as it is known, takes 6 seconds. 6 seconds is how long it takes for everyone in the turn order to take their turn. So, if there are the 4 party members and there are 4 orcs, they all go in one combat round, and after that round is over, whilst it might have taken you 20 minutes to get through it in a session, that's actually been 6 seconds in your character's life. So everything happens very quickly in combat. We don't just go into movement too much. Travel pace is all subjective. There's more stuff for DMing, really. Marching order, marching order is another phrase which is used a lot, which might not mean anything to you if you're new to the game, but that basically just means what order are you marching in, who is going first, who is going second, who's going third, who's holding the rear guard and stuff like that, and that's all what the DM is going to do, taking into account as he's doing so. So we don't need to go into all these specific rules as such. Social interaction seems much more important than anything else. Seems we're going over the basic principles here, and anything else you can read for yourself in these 3 basic rules, which I'll once again post in chat. They are 100% free and legal to use, so don't feel bad. And of course, you can grab a copy of the Player's Handbook. One thing I should mention is there's just a few hours to enter our giveaway. I'm giving away a copy of the Player's Handbook. I'm giving away a Dungeon Master's Guide and a Monster Manual, everything that you'll need to play Dungeons & Dragons. So if you haven't already checked out that giveaway, there's just a few hours to do so, and then your chance will be over. So do enter that giveaway if you haven't already. Let me continue. So social interaction. One of the main principles of the game, as we were talking about before. Let's have a look. Exploring dungeons, overcoming obstacles, and slaying monsters are key parts. No less important are the social interactions adventurers have with the inhabitants of the world. So role-playing. Wow, what a big term to describe. You'll have heard about role-playing. You might have a vague idea of role-playing is, or you might have no idea at all what it means in the context of D&D. You're like, a lot of players are, you can get your head around how to play the game. You get your mechanics about, okay, I've created my character, I've gone through the maths, I've gone through the motions of actually creating this character, and I understand that the Dungeon Master is the narrator, but what is role-playing, and how do I play out a role? So, literally, playing out a role. You are an actor in this game, essentially. In this case, it's you as the player determining how your character thinks, acts, and talks. Role-playing is a part of every aspect of the game and comes to the fore during social interactions. Your character's quirks, mannerisms, and personality influence how interactions resolve. There are 2 styles you can use when role-playing your character: the descriptive approach and the active approach. Most players use a combination of the 2 styles. Whichever mix of the 2 works best for you. So, I know role-playing, folks. We're getting into the big stuff here. So, again, role-playing is, if you take nothing away from this, then other than role-playing, then you've won. Basically, that's all you need to do. The rest you can figure out yourself. But role-playing is is difficult. So descriptive approach to role playing. So there are different kind of schools of thought when it comes to doing this, depending on how comfortable you are with acting and voice acting, speaking as your character. You might wish to take different approaches. So with this approach, the descriptive approach, you describe your character's words and actions to the DM and the other players. Drawing on your mental image of your character, you tell everyone what your character does and how he or she does it. For instance, Chris plays Tordek the Dwarf. Tordek has a quick temper and blames the elves of the Cloakwood for his family's misfortune. At a tavern, an obnoxious elf minstrel sits at Tordek's table and tries to strike up a conversation with the dwarf. Chris says, Tordek spits on the floor, growls an insult out the bard, and stomps over to the bar. He sits on a stool and glares at the minstrel before ordering another drink. In this example, Chris has conveyed Tordek's mood and given the DM a clear idea of the character's attitude and actions. When using descriptive roleplaying, keep the following things in mind. Describe your character's emotions and attitude. Focus on your character's intent and how others might perceive it. Provide as much embellishment as you feel comfortable with. So don't worry about getting things exactly right, but when we go into this next one here, let's go and see if we can see the difference between the descriptive and the active approach. So, the active approach to role-playing. If descriptive role-playing tells your DM and your fellow players what your character thinks and does, active role-playing shows them. So it's the difference between telling and showing. When you use active role-playing, you speak with your character's voice, like an actor taking on a role. You might even echo your character's movements and body language. This approach is much more immersive than descriptive role-playing, though you still need to describe things that can't reasonably be acted out. Going back to the example of Chris role-playing Tordek the Dwarf, here's how that might role-play out if Chris used active role-playing. Speaking as Tordek, Chris says in a gruff, deep voice, I was wondering why it suddenly smelled awful in here. If I wanted to hear anything out of you, I'd snap your arm and enjoy your screams. In his normal voice, Chris then adds, I get up, glare at the elf, and head to the bar. So, you see the difference between those two. There's the difference between that descriptive role-playing of me saying, my character does this, my character says this, and there's the more immersive way of me saying, I am actually gonna voice act. I don't necessarily have to put on a voice, but I could just say it, you know. If I was wondering why I suddenly smelled awful in here, if I wanted to hear anything out of you, I'd snap your arm and enjoy your screams. And active role-playing has that kind of both, because you can't voice act everything that you do. You still have to say, and then I get up from the bar and go and do this. But active role-playing is that one step more immersive. If you're a new player, then descriptive role-playing is probably what you're more comfortable with, because there's a certain amount of confidence which needs to be had when doing that active kind of even voice acting stuff to the active role-playing. But I would encourage you as new players to try out a bit of active role playing if you can. If you feel confident enough to do so, try it out, give it a go, and it is a lot of fun. It's much more immersive, and you'll have a great time doing it, I think. So that is my opinion on stuff. I much prefer an active approach to role playing, though each to their own. Not one is more valid than the other, and I'd certainly say that descriptive role-playing is easier for a new player. So if you are completely new, then try a bit of descriptive, understanding your character's emotions and attitude, and describing that to the party. Of course, I've just realised that the party is a term which is basically means the player characters are known as a party of adventurers. So whenever you hear the party, it's not like a hooray, a party. It could be, but most of the time it just means that there is a group of people, and that's who we're referring to. So you could do mannerisms as well, that's right. So mannerisms are another way of going around doing this. So instead of having to put on a voice, you can just stutter maybe, or you could put on different mannerisms. You can be twitchy, for instance. A poker face politician. I know plenty of DMs that don't put on voices, and they do equally as well. Of course, Superman, he says, it's okay to ask questions and things are not clear, and feel free throughout this session to ask any questions. Feel free to ask the question now, Perim, and I will answer it in a Q&A in a bit. So feel free. I will get into a Q&A in a little bit here.
So let's. That is role playing, a very important thing. Good night, Redundant. Have a good night, man. The results of role playing. The DM uses your character's actions and attitudes to determine how an NPC reacts. A cowardly NPC buckles under the threats of violence. A stubborn dwarf refuses to let anyone badger her. A vain dragon laps up flattery. So when interacting with an NPC, pay close attention to the DM's portrayal of the NPC's mood, dialogue, and personality. For instance, if he's being really like frosty with you, if the guy is being a real douchebag to you, then you can probably surmise that there's a reason why that character doesn't like you. And that kind of adds to the story. That adds to, maybe you can think about why that is. Maybe if you're a dwarf and you're speaking to an elf, well, elves don't always like dwarves, so maybe there's a kind of race-based issue. What's up, Irving? Good to see you back, man. So, if I was to learn my roll, my R's. So, in ability checks. So, ability checks also come into role-playing. So, for instance, if I am role-playing out a scene and I am trying to convince this barman to give me a free night at a tavern, then I would have to role-play out. So, I'd have to say, if I'm going with descriptive storytelling, descriptive role-playing, I say, my character, let's say Tordek the dwarf, brings up the points that he should have his free night at a tavern because he recently slew all those orcs for the barman, and a free night is the least he can offer. And if I was doing that in a more active role-playing sense, I'd actually have that conversation with the DM, and I'd say, in Tordek's voice, say, I killed all those orcs for ya, so, a free night at a tavern's least you can do, lad. And so that is how those different role-playing points could come in. And then an ability check would enter into the fray here. So the DM would say, alright, so roll me a persuasion skill check to see if you can persuade the barman to give you this free night at the tavern that you're asking for. And so I'd roll my d20, I'd add my bonus for my ability score and my skill, and I'd see if it beats DC, then I succeed. If I failed, then I would not be able to get that free night at the tavern. So that is how that role-playing stuff can work out. And for more examples of how to do so, then I will direct you back again to the YouTube channel where there's our full VODs of everything that is going on. So if you've never seen any role-playing done before, I'll show you a quick example of a role-playing scene from this week's episode of The Curse of Strahd. So let me bring this in for you guys here, and I'll show you a role-playing scene just as an example. Oh my god, there's too many wheels. Let me bring this up here so you guys can see a little bit better. Let me bring it down small. Bring it down real small. And I'll just show you guys an example of what a roleplay scene could look like. So, there we go. Let's bring it in like this. Let's bring it down like this. And I'll skip to a scene, which happens so here. These like metal objects you can hear. You can't see them at this point. You can hear her kind of moving through these metal objects and picking out her favourite one. And then she kind of brings it to into the light, and you can see what is essentially this bone saw, which she has in one hand, and she is. So at this point, I'm describing the scene. To the party. I'm describing exactly what's going on in the scene, and then we'll see what they want to do in the scene. I'm describing a horrific scene where a nurse is, like an evil nurse, is got a bone saw. Going down as the bone saw comes closer, she just she grabs one of your legs and she starts bringing it up, and she puts the saw to it, and she just starts sawing away. And at this point, you guys enter the child's ward. So you guys find yourself in the children's ward. As you open up into this room here, you see these 20 or 30 so cots filled with babies or just small young children in these kind of beds of mags. It's incredibly clean in this room. It's the most spotless room they've seen, other than the maggot beds. You immediately spot this nurse, who Dr. Caesar is referred to as Nursey. She is the lead nurse, the head of this ward, and she's just going at a child's leg with a bone saw. So to this point, after I've described the scene, that it's up for the players to decide what they do in that scene. And so I've described what it looks like, and now we're going to see exactly what they do. What are you guys doing? What do I do?
Just chilling.
Didn't do it.
So I'm getting my
Wrong
my
wall,
leg
sorry.
sawn off.
Yeah.
I'm
Miles.
giving pretty hefty screams.
The thing is, you can't actually scream, Miles. You try and scream, and you open your mouth, and your eyes are filled with terror, but you can't actually scream. No sound comes out from you.
So do I feel like I'm I'm struggling with it feels like I'm drowning. There's no sensation. I'm just writhing and kicking and making ungodly gargling sounds. I imagine I'm swallowing all kind of effluents and detritus.
Indeed. Indeed you are.
And we've just walked in on this.
You've just walked in on us. What are you guys doing?
Can I see it's Miles from here?
Not really, you can just see it's a child's leg.
Doctor, what's happening over there?
She digs a saw in for the first time, blood flies out.
He kind of tilts his head. He says, "That would be the this is the children's ward. This is where they operate on the children and they bleed them."
This is an example of active role-playing where the characters are doing voices. So, for instance, Asker in the top right is doing this to give himself the appearance of a mask. So it makes him sound like he's actually using a mask, wearing a mask. He's doing this.
And
Two wills.
you probably notice, like, as he doesn't really seem affected by this. He's probably most likely because he sees this every single day.
Yeah.
But there are like these tubes are sort of running out of all of the beds. And he just he goes over to one and he just kind of casually just checks it. He says, "Yes, blood flowing nicely."
So there you go. That's an example of like active role-playing where he's actually talking in his character, and then he says, "I'm going to go over here and do this," and this is what he does. So hopefully that is fairly clear for you guys. Again, if you want to watch more, then you can over on our YouTube channel where all of our VODs are up the very next day. So let me continue onwards, and I'll get back to our basic rules here. How's it going, Talos, by the way? Good to see you, buddy. So let me bring this back over here and make this big. Make it real big for you guys. Make it real big. Let's do this. Here we go. Resting. Resting's a thing. So good night, Talos. Good night, Talos. Good night, Highlands. So 4 cool Cthulhu session with 4 wills. That'd be absolutely terrifying. So carrying on with our basic understanding, our basic tutorial of the D&D 5th edition game. Good night, Francis. So, resting. A short rest is a period of downtime at least 1 hour long, during which a character does nothing more strenuous than eating, drinking, reading, and tending to wounds. A character can spend 1 or more hit die at the end of a short rest up to the character's maximum number of hit dice, which is equal to the character's level. For each hit die spent this way, the player rolls the die and adds the character's constitution modifier to it. The character gains hit points equal to the total. The player can decide to spend an additional hit dice after each roll. A character regains some spent hit dice upon finishing a long rest, as explained below. So basically, it's just a short rest. Within 1 hour, you can recuperate, gain some hit points back using your hit dice. Game of Thrones and Pizza. Game of Thrones is good, yeah. Although, recent seasons have been less good, I thought, but I still enjoy them. I still watch them. So yeah, apparently this episode is really good, actually. Okay, so, question from Enigmaze. If your PCs get interrupted from their rest by a random encounter and they manage to end it in 2 to 3 rounds, would they say they still get their full 8-hour rest? Yeah, I'd still give them the rest, most likely, yeah. Unless the combat went on for ages. So a long rest is a period of extended downtime, at least 8 hours long, during which a character sleeps or performs light activity, reading, talking, eating, or standing, watch for no more than 2 hours. If the rest is interrupted by a period of strenuous activity, at least 1 hour of walking, fighting, casting spells, or similar adventuring activity, the characters must begin their rest again to get any benefit from it. So there's your answer, actually, anyways, from the book. At the end of the rest, the character gains all lost hit points. The character also gains spent hit dice up to a number equal to half of the character's total number of them. Minimum of 1. So, for example, if a character has 8 hit dice, he or she can regain 4 spent hit dice before upon finishing a long rest. So there is
a long rest. So that takes about 8 hours, and it's just a chill time. So between adventures, you can do things like lifestyle expenses, downtime activity like crafting, researching, recuperating, and then of course we come to the big one. The one that we've all been waiting for is combats. So, once again, guys, I'm going to have this Q&A. I'm going to start a Q&A in like about half an hour's time, and then answer any and all questions thoroughly for you guys. But for just this bit here, combat. Right then. So this is the most important part for some people, and you know, it's where adventurers live and die, and it can also be where terrible things happen to the party, where they kill monsters, or they gain loot, where they succeed and fail, get injured, and do heroic feats. So, surprise! Right. We know what combat means. We actually know, have a very basic understanding, like everyone does, what a combat is. It's a period of time which is intensely strenuous, and we enter a new kind of game mode for combat, I suppose. So, surprise! A band of adventurers sneaks up on a bandit camp, springing down from the trees to attack them. A gelatinous cube slides down a dungeon patches, unnoticed by the adventurers until the cube engulfs one of them. In these situations, one side of the battle gains surprise over the other. The DM determines who might be surprised. If neither side tries to be stealthy, they automatically notice each other. Otherwise, the DM compares the dexterity stealth checks of anyone hiding with the passive perception score of the creature on the opposing side. So, back to our example before, the sneaking orcs hiding up, and the passive perception check, if they succeeded and the orcs were much stealthier than the party were aware, then they would gain surprise. So, 1. Combat step by step. Determine surprise. The DM determines whether one involved in the combat encounter is surprised. So what does surprise mean? So, surprise means, surprise, motherfucker. See you later, Archangel. Good to see you, Max. Thanks for stopping by, dude. So surprise means that, those with surprise gain a free turn before anyone else can even act. So you are so surprised, it's just startled for a few moments before you can do anything, means that the creatures who have gained surprise, they have a surprise round, as it is known, and they get a whole round just on themselves before it actually becomes normal combat rounds. So, okay, determine surprise. Number 2, establish positions. The DM decides where all the characters and monsters are located. Given the adventurer's marching order or their stated positions in the room or other location, the DM figures out where the adversaries are, how far away, and in what direction. So, pretty simple stuff, right? So if you're fighting in a dungeon, the DM might have a map, and you can say, you guys are mapped out here, and you guys, the enemies are over here, and they are so far away. Number 3, roll initiative. Everyone involved in the combat encounters rolls initiative, determining the order of the combatants' turns. So, that means that if you roll high initiative, you're going first, and it goes in an order like that, depending on who takes a turn in which order. I nearly played the audio for Let's Get Good. So that is what combat is. You take turns. Each participant in the battle takes a turn in initiative order. Begin the next round. When everyone involved in the combat has taken a turn, the round ends. Repeat step 4 until the fighting stops. Perfect. Perfect. So, how do you roll initiative to determine who goes first, who goes second, who goes third, and who goes on? So, let's have a look. So, each participant makes a dexterity check. So it's 1d20 plus your dexterity bonus. Once again, back to these ability modifiers over here. If I have an 18 in dexterity, it's a +4, so I'd roll a d20 plus 4. And so on and so forth, depending on the relevant ability scores there. If I roll high, I'm going higher up in the ability, so in initiative rather. So if there are 5 combatants, Jim rolls a 16, but Terry rolls a 20. Terry's going first, then Jim's going after her. So that is how initiative works. So let's talk about your turn. On your turn, you can move a distance up to your speed and take 1 action. So your speed is determined depending on your class. It's done in feet. So average move speed is 25 feet, which is about 5 squares on a combat map. And you can take an action, so you can move and take an action. You decide whether to move first or take your action first. Your speed, sometimes called your walking speed, is noted on your character sheet. The most common actions you take are described in the Actions in Combat section later in the chapter. So we'll go on to that. You can also forgo taking an action and moving. You don't have to do anything on your turn. So you have movement, actions, and what are known as bonus actions in D&D 5th edition. They are the only 3 things that you have really, other than reactions, which we'll get to in a moment. So bonus actions, various class, features, spells, and other abilities let you take an additional action on your turn called a bonus action. The cunning action feature, for example, which is a rogue feature, I believe, allows a rogue to take a bonus action. God, I'm the best. You can take a bonus action only when a special ability, spell, or other feature of the game states you're allowing to do something as a bonus action. So a bonus action is something you just do on the side. So you might run, you might attack, and you might also just do a little dodge if you're a rogue, and you might be able to unstop a healing potion, something like that. So other than that, you can include a variety of flourishes that require neither action nor your move. You can communicate however you're able through brief utterances and gestures as you take your turn. You can also interact with one object or feature of the environment for free. These are known as like free actions. So you can talk, you can move something, you can shout. It's all a free action as long as it's not taking up time. But remember, each combat turn lasts 6 seconds, so you can't be having a full conversation with someone whilst it's in combat, basically. Minor actions are back and forth, so we have bonus actions nowadays. Oh, nice, man. That's sweet. So reactions. What is a reaction? Certain abilities, spells, and situations allow you to take a special action called a reaction. A reaction is an instant response to a trigger of some kind, which can occur on your turn or on someone else's. So, for instance, the most common one, which is often used, I see commonly used, is the Warlock Hellish Rebuke. So Hellish Rebuke triggers, I believe, when you are damaged by an opponent. So it triggers on your opponent's turn. Your opponent hits you, it might not even be damage, it might just be an attack roll. You're attacked, and then you can react by casting a fireball as a reaction. It's just like, as you take damage, you can do that. Does bonus actions work the same way action points work back in 4E? Not at all. Not at all. So big difference between 4E and 5E. So bonus actions are just little things you can do only due to special abilities. Action points back in 4E no longer exist except for a fighter ability, which is an action surge. So action points no longer exist other than in action surges and potentially some feats as well. Superman says, this will sound stupid, but is there a setup to buy like a D&D guide and dice? I've never seen it for sale. Anyway, of course there is. There is if you look on any kind of store, to say like Amazon or somewhere like that, if you look for like the basic, I forgot what it's called, the basic guide, the basic book sets. There's like a box set which comes out, D&D basics. Let's have a look. Basic set. I'm just gonna Google this. Box. Let's have a look. The starter box. Here we go. I will link it in chat. Dungeons & Dragons starter box is a box game, and that's all you need to play the game. It's a bit of a long link. I apologise, but if you start for the search for the starter box, then go ahead and you'll be able to find it. It's pretty cheap. All you need to play, and it's the best way for new and experienced players to join in, they say. So, but yeah, stupid questions aren't really stupid because there are other people who are new and are thinking the same things as you. So, as they used to say in school, don't worry about asking questions. So, breaking up your move. You can break up your movement on your turn using some of your speed, then using your action, and then using some of your movement again. So for instance, I don't have to move, attack, end my turn. I can move, attack, and then move away. That is something which is possible, although there are consequences to doing that, which we'll get to in a bit. We don't need to get to difficult terrain or being prone, really, because that's a bit more... we do not need to enter flying movement at all. But actions in combat are probably the most important thing about the combat.
let's have a look here. So, the attack. Oh, the blessed attack. Let's have a read of what the basic rules tell us. So when you take actions on your turn, you can take one of the actions presented here, an action you gain from your class or a special feature, or an action that you improvise. Many monsters have attack options of their own in their stat blocks. So attack, the most common action to take in combat is the attack option. Whether you are swinging a sword, firing an arrow from a bow, sorry I can't speak, or brawling with your fists. With this action, you take one melee or ranged attack. So melee attack means that you are standing adjacent to the enemy. Adjacent means that you're in the next square to them, which means you are 5 feet or less away from them. A ranged attack means that you are further away than 5 feet. Obviously, like a ranger, you're shooting a bow further away. A melee attack is swinging with a sword in close. So just some basic terms in case you were wondering. So, so there are certain features that allow you to have extra attacks. So, casting a spell also takes an action as well. The attack is an interesting thing. So, like we were talking about before, we basically went through it. It's that armor class thing that we were talking about before. So you roll your d20, you add any bonuses involved, and then you compare it to the difficulty class, which in this case is the armor class of your opponent. So if the armor class is equal to or if your roll is equal to or greater than the armor class, then it is a hit. If the armor class of your enemy is 15 and you roll a 15, it is a hit. Anything lower is a miss, and that is how you do an attack. If it's a range-based attack, that means it's dexterity-based, not strength-based. So if I'm firing with a bow, I'm not really using my strength, I'm using my dexterity to pull back the bow and to aim it properly, and to get the right angle and stuff like that. So that is dexterity-based. I'd roll 1d20 plus my dexterity bonus and any relevant modifiers I'd have for being proficient in a weapon. So let's move on down to the other actions that we can take, because whilst attack is the most common, and whilst using spells are also very common, there are other things that you can do as well. Dash. When you take the dash action, you gain extra movement for the current turn. This increases your equal speed after applying any modifiers. With a speed of 30 feet, for example, you can move up to 60 feet on your turn if you dash. So it's basically the double move. And that's all that it means, really, is if you can normally move 30 feet, you're going to say, I'm going to spend a dash, I'm going to spend my whole turn, going to use my action and my move action to dash and double move. And that is how you can dash. And really get around the place. So, disengage. If you take the disengage action, your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks for the rest of the turn. Now, what is an opportunity attack, you ask? Well, opportunity attack is a very old term. It's been around for a long time, but it might not mean anything to you if you're new. What what it means is simply that when you move out of a square, if you move out of a combat with someone and you're just running away, then you are exposing your back to them, or you're exposing weakness when they can take this attack of opportunity. As they see you going away, they can just lunge towards you and get an attack against you. So in this game, whenever you move away from a square whilst you're in combat with a character, you take an attack of opportunity. That means that they get to roll an attack roll against you whilst you're moving away. It's the kind of, as you turn your back, you get sliced in the back, that sort of thing. And if they hit, then you take damage. But if they miss, then you manage to dive out the way. So disengage lets you get around that, but it takes a whole turn to do this. If you take the disengage action, your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks the rest of the turn. So you spend your whole turn disengaging from this combat, and then you can spend your movement to get away. So it's a kind of, it's that devil's bargain. Like, if you want to not take that attack of opportunity, you can't attack this turn. But if you just want to be really careful about it, then you can disengage and get out of the way. But if you're feeling like, we just need to run, and you're going to spend your dash action to get 60 feet away, you're going to take an attack of opportunity as you run away. Dodge. When you take the dodge action, you'll focus entirely on avoiding attacks. At the start of your next turn, any attack rolls made against you have disadvantage if you can see the attacker, and you make dexterity saving throws with advantage. And you lose this benefit if you're incapacitated. So dodging is just making sure that you're going around. You can help another creature if they're critically wounded and attempt to revive them.
hide. You can attempt to hide by stealthing away. Readying an action is also something that you can do. If there's nothing immediately to do, then you can ready an action. And readying an action means that you hold your action until a particular circumstance. It lets you use your reaction before the start of your next turn. First, you decide what perceivable circumstance will trigger your reaction. Then, you choose the action that will take the response to that trigger. I don't want to go too much into this, but basically, the example is, if that cultist steps on the trapdoor, I pull the lever that opens it. So you can ready your action to do that when it's not on your turn. Yeah, do join us in Discord, guys, by the way. If you like role players and you want to meet some players and stuff like that, then there's like loads of guys, 30 guys in there who are in our Discord hanging out with us. And also the tavern, there's 24/7 text-based role playing going on in our tavern as well. Search, you can search for an object. Okay, let's go into it again. Making an attack, choose a target. Easy enough. Determine the modifiers. That's up to your DM. You resolve the attack. You roll it. Like I say, ranged attacks are dexterity based. Ranged attacks in close combat are more difficult. You have disadvantage. That's again rolling that twice, taking the lowest one when you're in close combat. So that's opportunity attacks we just covered. We don't need to go into the rules so much. The hit points. When a creature's hit points reach 0, they are knocked unconscious. The higher the hit points, the more healthy you are, basically. Critical hits. What is a critical hit? I mean, we've all heard the term Nat 20. We've all heard that term critical hit. We've all heard Nat 1s and critical misses before. What do they mean? Well, when you score a critical hit, you get to roll extra dice for the attack's damage on a target. A critical hit is scored when you roll a natural 20, which means that on the dice you roll a 20. It's a 1 in 20 to actually do this. It doesn't mean if you roll a 17 and add 3 to it. That's not an nat 20. That's just an unnatural 20, I suppose. A natural 20 is when you roll flat on your d20. A20. And that is known as a critical hit. So roll all the attack's damage twice and add them together. Then add any relevant modifiers as normal. It's a point to note, you don't double the modifier. If you're rolling 2d6 plus 6 for damage, you don't roll 3d6 plus 12, you roll 3d6 plus 6. So that's a critical hit. Critical misses occur when you roll a 1 on this d20. When you roll the worst possible result on a d20, and if your DM is using these rules, then he can choose to do so. Thank you so much to Mage Kayat for following. Welcome, my friend, to the adventure. You are a gentle folk and a scholar. Thank you for following. So a nat 1 occurs when you roll a 1 on the die, and it's up to your DMs to decide if something particularly bad happens to you. That's up to your DM if you're using like the failure rules on the nat ones, but most people do. Healing, we'll get to later. Instant death is possible in the game, very unlikely though. When damage reaches you to 0 hit points, you are unconscious, but if there's extra damage on top of that, then you can die. For example, a cleric with a maximum of 12 hit points currently has 6 hit points. If she takes 18 damage from an attack, she's reduced to 0 hit points, but 12 damage remains. Because the remaining damage equals her hit point maximum, the cleric dies. So if you were like 1 hit for a butt ton of damage, then you can just straight up die, which would suck, but there you go. Let me go down here. Sweet. So, if rocks fall and everyone dies, the DM wishes to do so, then that can happen as well, yeah. Alright, temporary hit points. Is there a system shock roll anymore? I don't know what that is because I haven't played 2nd edition enough, but if you describe what it means, then I can, I'll let you know. I don't think so, but it could just be change the name of it. So, temporary hit points are different. So if you imagine your hit points as a separate bubble of hit points, they are separate and distinct to temporary hit points. Temporary hit points go in their own bubble atop. So you can gain temporary hit points from some spells and through some potions and abilities as well. And temporary hit points sit above. They're like a buffer. So a pool of hit points that protect you from injury. When you have temporary hit points and take damage, the temporary hit points are lost first, and any leftover damage carries over to your normal hit points. For example, if you have 5 temporary hit points and take 7 damage, You lose all your temporary hit points and then take 2 actual damage. So temporary hit points are like a buffer on top of your actual hit points. They are there to protect you, and you don't really see too many temporary hit point uses because they're pretty powerful. The other thing to note is that you cannot stack temporary hit points. So if I gain 5 temporary hit points from a cleric spell, then I can't gain another 10 from another mage's spell. You just take the highest one, so I only get the 10 from the mage. You actually one of the people almost correctly pronounced my name. First try is pronounced mage. Oh, got it, cool. No worries, good to see it. So, yeah. Okay, so, how do you decide how much to get into a role? I mean, it's to each player, really, but, it's a balance, as the Shagman is saying there. So, let's carry on down. That's what temporary hit points are. Let's not get into mounted combat because, you know, bullshit. Spellcasting, what a big one. What a big one. So, this is something that we said we'd go over. I've got 10 minutes to do it before I want to open up a Q&A section where you guys can just ask anything about the game and I'll do my best to answer. I'm by no means a guru on the game, but I do playlist ridiculous amounts for any human to do so. Yeah. Name another person who plays as much D&D 5th edition as I do. On a regular basis. So, what is a spell? Well, I give you guys enough intelligence to understand. Oh shit! The t-shirt's on sale. Fuck! Buy t-shirts. Oh, how much is a t-shirt right now? God damn it! T-shirts are real cheap. So if you guys actually want to grab a Encounter Roleplay t-shirt, then they are on sale at the moment. I didn't even realize that happened for another 6 hours. But Londa says, I try to put on voices to really help the players a lot. Of course, if I get what voice I get told off, yeah, no, that's a valid point. Of course, I remind you guys, if you are new and you haven't followed, do hit that follow button and join us. It's the best way to keep up with our full schedules. That is 5 nights a week, 9 shows a week, over 130 hours, more D&D than anyone else on the internet streams. So, fuck 'em, as Gareth would say. So, spells are, of course, magical stuff. We all know what a spell is, right? So, spell level. Every spell has a level from 0 to 9. A spell's level is a general indicator of how powerful a spell is, with the lowly but still impressive magic missile at first level and the incredible time stop at 9th. Cantrips, simple but powerful spells that characters can cast almost by rote, are level 0. The higher a spell's level, the higher level a spellcaster must be to use that spell. So it makes sense, right? The higher level you are, the higher spells you can cast, and the lower you are, you have access to less spells, which sucks, but it's a progression thing. Cantrips, you can cast them at will, you can cast them whenever you want, they don't need any kind of preparation, you can just do them all the time. Man, spells are one of the most complex things that they decided to do in 5th edition. For new players, it just takes a bit to get your head around for this. And I do apologise it being a little bit confusing, blame Watsy, but there you go. It's a wee bit confusing. What's up, Nubington? Good to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a little while. So, known and prepared spells. And like I say, I won't go too much into depth for this. We'll probably do our own tutorial on spells individually because there's so much to cover. So, before a spellcaster can use a spell, he or she must have the spell firmly fixed in mind or must have access to the spell in a magic item. Members of a few classes have a limited list of spells they know that are always fixed in mind. The same thing is true of many magic using monsters. So, in every case, the number of spells a caster can have fixed in mind depends on the character's level. Let's go up here, spell slots. So, you can only know so many spells. I am reading from the player basic rules. There you go. You can get them for free. Free to use, free to read, download, whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. So, spell slots. So we have known spells, and we have spell slots. Regardless of how many spells a caster knows or prepares, he or she can only cast a limited number of spells before resting. Manipulating the fabric of magic and channeling its energy into even the simple spell is physically and mentally taxing, and higher level spells even more so. Thus, each spellcasting class description includes a table showing how many spell slots of each spell level a character can use at each character level. For example, The 3rd level wizard Umara has 4 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots. That is confusing as hell, the way they word things. The way they've just named them spell slots and spell levels. So, what does that mean? Well, depending on your class and depending on your level, you have more spell slots at different spell levels that you can use. And when I cast a spell, I use up a spell slot. So if I cast a spell at level 3, a level 3 spell, then I use up my level 3 spell slot. And that is gone until I rest. I can use cantrips all the time. I can use as many cantrips as I want, all the time. But for different level spells, I only have so many spell slots depending on my level and depending on my class that I can actually use. Rituals are another thing aside from cantrips. Certain spells have a special tag ritual. Such a spell can cast the following normal rules of spellcasting. It takes 10 minutes longer to cast than normal because it's like a ritual spell. There are so many things which go into actually casting a spell, and I want its own kind of tutorial for this because I think it deserves it just to explain everything fully to you guys, because I appreciate there's a hell of a lot which goes into it. Let's have a look. So, cast time. How long does it take to cast a spell? Does it take a single action to cast? Does it take a bonus action to cast? Or even longer? A bonus action means you do it especially quickly. Reactions, some are reactions like I was talking about before. Hellish Rebuke is a reaction that happens not on your turn. Range, you have to see how far, if you are in range. So if your enemy is 150 feet away but you're trying to cast a spell which is a range of 30 feet, then you can't cast it on that enemy. So that's worth bearing in mind. The components are another big part of it. So you have verbal, somatic and material. Verbal, you have to say something if you're casting the spell, so you can't do it if you're like gagged and bound. Somatic, spellcasting gestures, so if you actually gesticulate, you know, if you can't move your hands, then you can't do it. Materials, the big one. A character can use a component pouch or spellcasting focus in place of components for a spell. So if the spell components say you need the Eye of Newt and 10 crow feathers to cast a spell, then you need those components to do it, or you can have a component pouch or a spellcasting focus, which might be like a crystal on your wizard staff, to cast the spell. Duration, how long it lasts. Is it instantaneous, or does it take you focus to concentrate and sustain the spell? And honestly, I'm just realizing that there's so much stuff which goes into spells that I don't want to have to cover all of it here. And of course there is our spell list all the way through here, so you can see cantrips level 0 and all the way up to 9th level, up to Meteor, Swarm, Power Word, Kill and Time Stop being 9th level wizard spells, going really up the power scale. So like I say, I apologize for not going too in depth into spells, but there is your list here. And you can find them here, you can read up more of it, and next week I think we'll do a full rundown of spells. You can see there's so many of them and there's lots that goes into it. It does have the appendix of Gods of the Multiverse. If you and if someone's interested in asking earlier, here is your table of gods. I think Leo was asking about gods in D&D, so page 107 there, and then there are other appendices, stuff like that. So let me open the floor to some questions. I appreciate I've been talking for 2 hours and I haven't been able to answer your questions in detail, so in chat please do open the floor to any questions that you have about the game, about how to do things, about any suggestions that you want to ask me, about if I have any advice or anything like that, then feel free to ask and I will do my level best to do